A key commitment and a key decommitment for the University of Louisville football program. We will talk about that here in just a second. Stay tuned.
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome in to another episode of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. I serve as a credential media member for Cardinal Sports Zone. I also do some PA announcing work for the university in various sports. I want to take this time, as always, to personally thank you for making us your first listen of the day. And just a reminder, the Locked On Louisville podcast is free on all streaming services, 5 days a week, your team every day. This Thursday edition of the show, the first of two Thursday editions of the show, will be focusing on Flyville 23, talking about a key commitment in three-star offensive lineman Jordan Church, but also a key decommitment in three-star defensive back Jeremiah Collins. In the conclusion of the show, we will discuss just the overall state of the recruiting class as a whole and what positions that the coaching staff should address moving forward. So, obviously, starting with the big news, this was a recruitment that, a lot of Louisville fans probably saw the writing on the wall. Jordan Church, the three-star offensive lineman, made a visit on that big June 17th official visitor weekend, had been on campus before, so, familiar with the program. It seems like the program is going to pick up multiple offensive line commitments, and it seems like they're still not done. But if anything goes to show how successful that recruiting weekend was, it has landed the commitments of Reuben Owens, most notably Luke Burgess recently, and obviously now Jordan Church. Church is a three-star offensive lineman on the interior, 6'4", 325 pounds from Bradenton, Florida, a player at IMG Academy. He is ranked as the 1,130th best prospect in the class, the 84th best interior offensive lineman, and the 158th best prospect in the Sunshine State. Had a handful of offers, most notably from some ACC schools, Pittsburgh, Florida State, Tennessee, Mississippi, South Florida, Missouri, moving on down the list. So that offer sheet, although it's not the largest, it kind of begs to question the ranking that Church has. And I know that offensive line and stuff like that, sometimes it's hard to really assess and rank offensive line prospects just because, there's a lot of factors that kind of go into it. So ultimately, I think it's a pretty solid addition to the program. I want to read from Michael McCammon of Cardinal Authority, Louisville's 24/7 Sports website. I want to read some of the quotes that Church had given to the the Cardinal Authority staff about his visit. Sorry. Church goes on to say, "It was by far the most fun that I've had in a while. Louisville is a great city. I've always had love for it, and the weekend was just great." It looks like Aaron Gunn was his player host. He was pretty impressed with the the luxury cars and the planes and stuff like that. He says, "I would just say how all the fans showed so much love. We went to Churchill Downs and saw the horse races and stuff, and that was great. We ate great food all weekend, stayed at a great hotel, and laid it all out just great for us. We got to go out with the players, and they were cool. That was my first time getting to be around the players. They showed us the city, and they were super cool." So just the weekend as a whole was pretty solid. I mean, I think that kind of spoke for itself. With how these prospects have really taken to social media. Some of the the highlights of their recruiting visits and stuff like that. So it was a little interesting because Church took an official visit to Pittsburgh immediately following in the next weekend after he visited Louisville, but Pretty much not even a week later, commits to the University of Louisville. He becomes the second offensive lineman in the class. The Cardinals now currently have the 14th best class. We'll talk about the decommitment that kind of lowered that number. But ultimately, I think that this is a solid start to the offensive line recruiting, because on Sunday, you got a possible left or even right tackle for the future. Well, now you address the interior where, you're going to lose guys like Caleb Chandler, going on down the line. Cole Bentley is gone, so Brian Hudson's probably going to slide into his spot at center, taking away the possibility at guard. So I think that overall, this is just one of those to where people will look at it and think, well, Dalton, he's not even ranked inside of the top 1,200. I get it. And I understand when you get 5-star prospects committing, top 4 stars, top 300 players, getting a guy inside the top 1,200, you're like, okay, is this really necessary to hype this guy up that much? I think that the ranking doesn't really do Church justice. I think that, when you watch him play, it's definitely one of those instances to where, you like the footwork, you like his point of attack, his hands. Overall, I think, he has a tenacity and he has just kind of a vicious playing style on the interior, something that, you see in guys like Caleb Chandler and company. And that's something that, it might not necessarily be a, very like historically noteworthy addition. And what I mean by that is it doesn't get the glamour of a quarterback committing or a guy at a skills position committing or a defensive lineman or stuff like that. You think interior offensive line, you're like, oh, okay. I mean, it is what it is. But I am very, very ecstatic for these additions the past 2 recruits, because hey, one of the reasons why Malik Cunningham in this Louisville offense has been very successful is the vast improvement over the 3 years that Scott Satterfield has been at the helm at the Cardinals program. So, having players that could possibly be first-round selections, we talk about Caleb Chandler, but, multiple guys. It's a veteran-led group that is in the trenches for the Cardinals. So in my opinion, hey, this is an instance to where after this season, it's all about reloading. I definitely think that the Cardinals, we're going to, possibly be adding one here in the next 2 weeks from that June 17th official visit list, and that's going to be a huge commitment. But overall, I mean, this was one of those things where I was like, okay, when is the offensive line recruiting going to start to take into effect? And hey, Nick Cardwell is playing a huge position for the recruiting moving forward. So ultimately, I'm very, very excited for for Jordan Church, for the offensive line as a whole, and just for the Flyville 23 class. I know that there's been 2 decommitments. We're going to talk about one here in the next segment, but I'm very excited for what Scott Satterfield and company have brewing in this class. Right now, it is currently ranked as the 14th best class, and if you kind of look inside those rankings, hey, it's going to be one of those things where the Cardinals may get passed up by some schools, but they're also definitely going to pass other schools. So just kind of be patient. I would take this, for what it is. I mean, I think that Church probably is a player that's going to rise up a little bit more before signing day. I'm not necessarily saying he's going to be a 4-star level guy, but, having a 3-star offensive guard that has the size and has, seemingly the tools to be successful at the next level, I think that's an instance to where, hey, it's going to be interesting to see, is Jordan Church going to be an instant impact guy? I think it's probably going to be, a year 2 before we start to see him in that rotation, which is okay, with the offensive line and how Louisville has been recruiting it. So, you could see him maybe take a red shirt year 1. If not, it's something that he'll be probably maybe in the 2 deep. I think that's probably the objective. But by year 2, you're going to see Jordan Church start to be able to, lobby for playing time and things of that nature. So great commitment for the Cardinals program. Unfortunately, the news was a little dampered with the decommitment on Wednesday. That was of local defensive back Jeremiah Collins. We will discuss what that means for this recruiting class here in just a second after we talk about our friends over at Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. So why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning and wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing the only brand their warehouse happens to carry. When you have computers with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket, allows you to save time and money. It's a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. Prices are reliably low for every customer, and they have everything you could need, from brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, and even new carpet. Go explore their easy-to-use website today to find the solution to your auto parts needs. That is rockauto.com, and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Right locked on in their "How did you hear about us" box, so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. So unfortunately, three-star defensive back Jeremiah Collins announced via his Twitter on Wednesday evening that he would be reopening his recruitment and decommitting from the Louisville program. The former Louisville Male High School defensive back standout decommitted from the program on Wednesday evening, like I said. After being committed since that big weekend in January. Transferred to Murfreesboro, Tennessee, where he will play at Oakland High School next year. The 6'2", 165-pound cornerback / safety who can play both. It's a big loss for the university. I know that it's probably at one of the positions that you can afford to lose someone at, just because you have guys like Aaron Williams, Jaden Davis, Raekwon Atkins. But it is worth noting, you just lost Martell Height over a week ago. Now you lose Jeremiah Collins, who I've been very vocal in saying that he's going to be very, very good at the next level. Let me just start out by saying I wish Jeremiah the best of luck, whether he decides to recommit to Louisville at the end of the day, or if he decides to go elsewhere. Being a male high school graduate myself, definitely always looking out for other male high school graduates. Wish him the best of luck. He's a very, very, very nice kid. All I hear from males coaches is that he's very easy to coach. Just a leader of the defense, and just what you're looking for in a leader, and how he carries himself on and off the field. And that's something that kind of embodies what Scott Satterfield is looking for in terms of recruiting these guys into his program. So wish Jeremiah the best of luck. We'll be cheering him on regardless of where he goes. But from a Louisville aspect, this one kind of stings. Martell Height was kind of one of those instances where it was like, okay, hey, look, there's been rumors of his, like a high school coach joining Vanderbilt, and Vanderbilt might necessarily be like the pick when it comes to where he chooses to go. But Jeremiah Collins was the local guy, went to Mayo. Very vocal about the Cardinals program, and ultimately he ends up decommitting, and it's tough. It's tough to it's tough to kind of process, and unfortunately it is what it is. I can't fault him for opening up his recruitment and making sure that this is the right decision, because hey, look, this is a life-changing decision. But ultimately for the University of Louisville, they have to move on. I guarantee that they'll probably still recruit Jeremiah Collins. It would be interesting to kind of see what direction they head into now. But from this recruiting class's standpoint, I do think that it starts to put the emphasis back on defensive backs. It's very evident that Scott Satterfield and company were going to put the emphasis on that, because it seems like the program is replacing a decent amount of them in the next season or so. So it is what it is, and at the end of the day, you have to you have to replenish your depth and things of that nature. So I have heard the rumors that Jeremiah could be looking at Kentucky. I can't confirm nor deny that, because I truly don't know. I know that he tweeted out that he got offers from Campbell and Liberty. This was on Wednesday evening, so yesterday evening. So I expect Collins to continue to rise up rankings. He's sitting right outside of the top the top 500. He's a guy that holds offers from Virginia Tech, Kentucky, Illinois, Miami of Ohio, multiple programs across the country and especially in the Power Five. One thing that I think that Louisville's going to miss the most is just the versatility there. He at Male he played time, or played snaps, out wide on the boundaries as like a true number one cornerback for Male, but he also played as kind of like a hybrid safety, sort of like almost like an Isaiah Simmons role in coverage. And what I mean by that is kind of like a Derwin James as well. And I'm not saying obviously he's either one of those guys because I think they play honestly as more of linebackers, but in coverage, being able to kind of be a ball hawk in the back of the secondary, or also just line up at cornerback and guard the other team's best receiver. Jeremiah Collins, a local guy, so optically this kind of looks bad as well as, hey, you got Selah Brown in the class before, but now you lose a guy like Jeremiah Collins. It's a different situation because he did transfer to Murfreesboro, Tennessee, so he's not necessarily playing for Male at the time, or at this time. So it is what it is, unfortunately. But I will say that you never want any type of decommitment. It's from an optic level. I mean, it looks bad, but at the end of the day, things do happen. Sometimes guys get recruited over. Guys decide to go elsewhere. It is the name of the game. I caution fans to truly think that there isn't going to be any turnover in this recruiting class. There's going to be guys that decommit throughout the process. We are in late June. Signing day is not for another 6 months or so. So just understand that, what the recruiting class may look like right now. Some of these guys at the end may not necessarily be in it. And that's kind of speaking from a general sense. I'm not coming out here saying, oh, Pierce Clarkson's going to decommit, or they're going to lose Aaron Williams, or they're going to lose Ruben Owens. I'm not saying any of that. I'm not, alluding to anything specifically. I'm just saying, generally speaking, for any program, sometimes decommitments happen. Like, it's normal. Yes, Louisville is putting together probably the best class in program history from a rankings perspective. But don't let that distract you or, make it feel like it's impossible for, this program to experience decommitments. Texas A&M just signed the number one class of all time. In that class alone, they had decommitments. They lost the number one linebacker in the country, Harold Perkins, to LSU at the end of the cycle. Just this past week, they lost a 4-star defensive lineman that probably Louisville should look into recruiting because, being a big-time disruptor on the interior defensive line. But that's a story for a different day. You get where I'm coming from. I mean, it is what it is. It's one of those things to where you try not to look into it too much. Because the Martell Height thing just kind of, is self-explanatory. This one's a little bit tougher to kind of, make rationale of, trying to, have a lifeline to like fall back on and say like, oh, he decommitted because of this, or oh, he decommitted because of that. I mean, it might just necessarily be he's looking to make sure that this is the best option for him, which I cannot fault him for that. So best of luck to Jeremiah, the rest of the way in whatever he decides to do. But it definitely changes, in my opinion, how the Louisville football program will continue to address the 2023 recruiting class. We're going to answer, in my opinion, how they will go about doing so here in just a second after we talk about our friends over at BetOnline. Look, betonline.net is your number one source for all of your betting needs and sports info. Find all of the latest developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's NHL playoffs and Major League Baseball. BetOnline is your continued source for all of your sporting wagering info, including live betting, esports, and more. And it remains the best spot for all of your sports scores, podcasts, and news. It's the fastest and easiest way to check in on all of your favorite sports and events, including MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline is where the game starts. So moving into the final segment, before we do that, I want to take this time, as always, to personally thank you for making us your first listen of the day. And hey, just a reminder, the Locked On Louisville podcast is free on all streaming services 5 days a week, your team every day. Moving into the final segment, the Cardinals currently sitting at 11 commits after getting a commitment and a decommitment on Wednesday evening. They fell a little bit in the rankings. They are ranked 14th overall with 11 commitments so far. The question now becomes, what is the current state of the class, and, what positions are, the coaching staff going to address moving forward? Well, the current state of the class is that we are on one hell of a track right now in terms of where this program is at. It's looking like if the momentum can continue, that it's probably going to maybe end up as the highest rated class in program history. Offensively speaking, they pretty much are starting to round that out. You've got your quarterback in Pierce Clarkson, you've got your premier running back in Reuben Owens, two wide receivers highly rated in DeAndre Moore Jr. and Jaleel McClain. You have two offensive linemen in Jordan Church and Luke Burgess, and you also have a tight end who's in the top 420 in Jamari Johnson. So Adonijah Green is a four-star edge rusher, and then you have three defensive backs in Jaden Davis, Raekwon Adkins, and Aaron Williams. So, in terms of addressing moving forward, I think that it's pretty self-explanatory that, this program is probably going to look to add two more defensive backs at least. I wonder if they're going to be able to get Oregon commit Cole Martin on an official visit. Like I mentioned, Martin's dad is the defensive backs coach at Oregon, so it's going to be very tough to try to sway him from the Ducks program. I do wonder now if they will try to circle back around with Jayshawn Frosto Ramos, four-star defensive back from St. John Bosco, and see if he still wants a spot in the class. But regardless, I think that they're going to look to, maybe add, two to maybe even three more defensive backs. Kevis Thomas, who just decommitted from Vanderbilt, was a guy that was supposed to visit last weekend but did not end up doing so. So I'm not sure if the ship has sailed there, but that's something to focus on because I think that, they're going to continue to try to address the defensive backs position. It seems like more and more prospects are kind of popping up through the woodwork. So, just because guys haven't been mentioned right now doesn't mean that they're necessarily not going to get, in the mix of some other prospects. So, definitely looking forward to it there. Another aspect of it that really shouldn't surprise anyone is the offensive line. We saw this program, bring in five or six offensive linemen into visit on June 17th. They got commitments from two of them, Burgess and Church, and it seems like a commitment from Madden Sanker could be in the works as well, assuming that they do get a commitment from Sanker, which obviously basically a top 100 player is huge, especially at the interior offensive line. What does that look like in terms of the future? I think that they're still probably looking to add two more guys, whether that's, Raymond Polito and Kobe Keenum, or if there's other guys that get into the mix, but, bringing in it seems like they'll have three, and they're probably still looking to add, 2 to 3 more. So offensive line and defensive back is two position groups to where it seems like I would feel comfortable with predicting that Scott Satterfield and company are looking to add at least two more guys at that position. And then two aspects of the recruiting realm that I'm interested to see how they address defensive line and the linebacking committee. Because the linebackers, you're losing Yasir Abdullah. You are losing, probably Monty Montgomery, Momo Sanogo. You have a lot of guys that are probably not going to be on this team next season. And, I mean, like I said, it is what it is, NFL draft, graduation, things like that. But right now there's not one linebacker committed, on the roster. I know that they are in the mix for some. Jeremiah Tellander ultimately committed to Tennessee, and that's one that Louisville probably felt good before the Volunteers got into the mix. So it'll be interesting to see if they're able to try to get 1 to 2 linebackers into the class. I know that they still have some younger guys, some depth like Jalen Alderman, TJ Quinn. Moving on down the line that, maybe they can kind of slide into that mix, but I still think that it's probably one of those instances to where you get like 2 to 3 linebackers if you're the Cardinals. And another aspect of it is the defensive line. Yes, you have a 4-star edge rusher and Adonijah Green, but you still need to address the interior because Jermaine Lole could definitely go to the NFL draft after this season. Yes, you might have some pieces that are looking to go to the next level as well. But you could have some just some overall guys coming back and things of that nature. But in my opinion, you need to address the defensive line as a whole. Bring him in another edge rusher. I know that they're trying to get Jabron Harvey to commit. I mean, it seems like he's probably going to stay in the state of North Carolina, but ultimately, edge rusher is something that the team is continuing to get better on. The interior defensive line would probably be priority number 1 for me. Number 2, followed by linebackers. Defensive backs, number 3. Filling out the offensive line, number 4. And also the wide receiving committee, getting another guy or 2 there is number 5 for me. So hopefully we can see some more commitments here in the next couple weeks for the program. So there will be another episode today highlighting or previewing, I should say, the tight ends position for the Cardinals. So be sure to check that out. Thanks again for making us your first listen of the day. Do yourself a favor, go check out the Locked On ACC podcast hosted by Candace Cooper. You can get that on all streaming services. But that's going to wrap up this Thursday edition of the show. Everyone have a great day. We will see you back here real